All right, let's get to running back. Love.
And by the way, I can't believe you missed this one thing, though. And hang on, wait, before we go to the graphic, guys, I wasn't ready. Not ready yet. Stop with the graphic. What are we doing?
Make it stop.
Oh my, we can't. Well, I guess apparently it's a runaway train. Once you get the graphic going, you can't stop it. This is what it is, and now it's frozen. Okay, there's no going back.
It's like the money train.
Right.
Movie is.
Totally.
Wesley Snipes.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't. Oh, Bullet Train was the one with Brad Pitt this past summer, right?
I'm thinking Money Train.
Either way, you and I are a train of fantasy information, sort of.
Fantasy Football Happy Hour with Matthew Berry, served by Applebee's.
Happy holidays and welcome to the Fantasy Football Happy Hour. I'm Connor Rogers alongside Matthew Berry, Jay Croucher, Lawrence Jackson. We got a packed house here. And reminder, there is no Sunday Fantasy Football pregame show, so we have a 2-hour special today. 2 hours.
2-hour special today. Get you ready for the Sunday slate, the Saturday slate. Merry Christmas to all. Happy Hanukkah to all. Got a little Stranger Things rock in.
Like it.
We're going 4 wide today. I'm very excited about it as well. I promise you this. I don't like to make a lot of promises in fantasy football, but I'm going to make one, and I'm going to make one right now. This 2-hour show will at least be more entertaining than last night's Thursday game. Yes. Between the Jags.
Oh yeah, bet
Guaranteed.
on that.
Guaranteed.
Bet on that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I like clearing low bars.
Yes, yeah.
We'll all be better than Zach Wilson.
Yeah.
Yes, actually correct as well.
Yeah.
I was born better than Zach Wilson.
That's right. I had so much fun doing the pre and post of that game that we're going to talk about it here as well. We still have Thursday Night Football recap here. Boy, nothing like it. Jaguars defeat the Jets 19-3 at MetLife Stadium. Bad weather, bad football, horrific quarterback play from Zach Wilson.
Yeah, I was going to say from Zach Wilson because the one side of the ball, like,
no, Trevor Lawrence is fine.
Trevor Lawrence looked good.
Not the problem.
Yeah, I mean, I've tried to I've made a lot of mom jokes about Zach Wilson, but at the end of the day, I've tried to be positive about the kid. I don't know if it's partially because I have him in a dynasty league and I desperately need him to have some sort of value, or if it's just I feel bad for the guy.
Oh,
but
man.
it just.
Fellas, this is nothing new, by the way. Take it from me.
No.
He's broken as we're watching some lowlights of Zach Wilson before he was pulled. As you're watching this live on if you're watching this live on Peacock, of course. We're showing some low light. That one at least got close to Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson was able to get fingers on it on that last throw.
A bankrupt money train, Zach Wilson.
We don't need to spend a lot of time on it because he's not fantasy relevant. I'm not even sure he's actually NFL relevant. He's a much bigger name than actual, part of the Jets offense at this moment. But he's broken, and I don't know. I mean, Saleh in the post game, and Connor, you covered this game for SNY. You were part of that pre and post game coverage. But from what I saw, Saleh was trying to, we were trying to get the running game going by Stroud. Like he's doing what he can to sort of protect his quarterback. But Zach Wilson needs to be on another team next year if he's going to have any sort of NFL career. Yeah. I feel like another NFL team.
The Indianapolis Colts.
There you go.
I'm sure Colts fans is exactly what they want to hear today.
They got openings.
Yeah. And honestly, I think he will be. I think there'll be a veteran quarterback under center for the Jets next year. I don't think Zach Wilson will even be on that roster, to be completely honest with you.
Yeah, right. But I think you tell me, Connor and Lawrence, I want you guys to give me your honest opinion here. What's worse? The Jets organization for spending the second overall pick on Zach Wilson, or Jay Croucher, a smart man with a lot of data in front of him, betting on Zach Wilson last night, because that's what he did. That's why he's wearing a Bortles jersey. I took my Jaguars straight up. Yeah. He wouldn't even give me the 2.5. No. He wouldn't give me the 2.5, and I said, fine, I'll take the Jags straight up. I'll wear the Pennington jersey tomorrow if the Jets win. You wear Bortles if my Jaguars win. My Jaguars won in deciding fashion. Jay Croucher, with all the data in front of you and your brains, you still bet on Zach Wilson last night.
I'll tell you two things. One, if the Jets, if they had Blake Bortles last night, they might win that game. They would have beaten the Patriots in that punt return game. They would have beaten the Lions with Blake Bortles. And I'm not talking about 2017 Blake Bortles. I'm talking about Blake Bortles today, whatever he's doing.
I'm about to say any Blake Bortles.
Blake Bortles on the couch.
He wins those games. Two, 6 years ago when I was working in Australia as a corporate lawyer, I didn't think I'd be on NBC wearing a Blake Bortles jersey, but life comes at you fast. And it's going better for me right now than Zach
2 days
Wilson.
before Christmas.
Yeah, exactly.
That's true. That is a good point. All things considered, you're still in a better. You're still feeling better about yourself this morning than Zach Wilson is. I don't know that there's much to talk about here with the Jets offense, other than the fact that because short week, right? Bad weather. And a quarterback change. Hopefully next week Mike White is back, and then you're back. If you survive this, if you survived Garrett Wilson having a poor performance, Bam Knight having a poor performance, I think you can feel better about them next week. With Mike White under center
against Seattle, who their defense is strong.
Yeah, brutal, including their run defense. So I feel
nice
better about
matchup.
Bam Knight. Felt like. Again, short week, they'll have 10 days to prepare. So, I don't know that there's much to talk about that. Other side of the ball here. 4 straight games for Evan Ingram. Evan Ingram's a thing. Has been, can just be like I was complaining about the fact that I played against him in a playoff game and he knocked me out of the playoffs in one league, but he now has 4 straight games with over 14 fantasy points. Since week 13, he's the number 1 tight end in fantasy. Now, of course, skewed by that huge game that he had against Tennessee, but still, they were looking for Evan Ingram, as you see there on your screen. Obviously, the 11 for 162, 2 touchdowns in week 14 against the Titans, but still, scored against the Lions in week 13, 8 for 62 against the Cowboys last week, and against the Jets, 7 for 113. Evan Ingram's legit and not 100% rostered somehow.
Is he the number 2 tight end in fantasy next week? They're going to play in the Texans. Is it Kelsey then Ingram?
And depending on what Mark Andrews does, he's got to be top 5. There's no question about it.
Well, I had him top 5 this week, and he can only go up from here. And you mentioned the big game he had a couple of weeks ago. And when you talk about tight ends in fantasy, even without that big game in there, he still be better than all the other tight ends besides Travis Kelce. So, it's lit for him for real.
He's getting looks. He's obviously getting in the end zone. I had him as a top 5 play this week as well, Lawrence. So you and I were on the same page there. And the last thing I'll say here, and we can move on to the show, is just Trevor Lawrence, man. That was a hell of a performance. In the rain against a tough defense, gets the bad start, right, with the fumble deep in his own territory, but came back and used his legs, which we talk about. By the way, the prop line for his rushing was just 12.5. Just smack, again, but I thought creatively about Doug Peterson using his legs. We've talked about that in the preseason, that he's more mobile than people give him credit for. Obviously, tough day at the office for Zay Jones and Christian Kirk, given the tough matchup and the rain and the short week. I'm not worried about any of those guys.
Yeah.
But Trevor Lawrence,
they didn't need him.
Next year, Trevor Lawrence is a locked-in QB1. I think he's clearly a QB1 not only for the rest of the year, obviously, but I think as you start thinking about next year, he'll go in the top 10 among quarterbacks.
Calvin Ridley on the way back. It only gets better.
People forget about that.
I also thought the last night just basically was yet another statement about just how horrific a job Urban Meyer did with Trevor Lawrence.
It was hard to do.
Year.
Hard to do what Urban Meyer did.
Honestly, I don't know that there's been a worse coaching performance in professional football than Urban Meyer last year with the Jaguars.
How bad Urban Meyer has actually killed Doug Peterson's Coach of the Year campaign, because it's if we put Norv Turner in there, they'd probably be doing the exact same thing. It's just not Urban Meyer.
And he should be. Peterson, I don't know that Peterson's Coach of the Year, but he should absolutely be in the others receiving votes.
Yeah, top 5.
Yeah, what him and Dable have done to turn things around in their respective situations, but Doug's is unbelievable. Yeah. All right, let's get into the top storylines. We'll get away from the Thursday night game.
And by the way, he'll get no votes too, but Saleh should be there. I get it. They've lost a couple now and everything like that, and so they're finishing tough. But no one thought the Jets would be good this year at all. No one thought that we'd be talking about potential playoff berths in December with the Jets. I think Saleh's done a great job.
They're one player away.
Right. He rolled out there with Zach Wilson, Mike White, and Joe Flacco. That was his quarterbacks this year. And he's one game under 500.
They're 3 plays away from being 10-6. The Vikings game, the Lions game, the Patriots game. They've had some tough losses.
Yeah, win total set at 5.5. They got to 7 quickly, but when you have no quarterback, things get off the rails really quickly.
Yes.
So, all right, week 16 here, fellas. Top storylines. Barry, what's the number one thing you're looking at here on the fantasy radar?
I think
radar?
Yeah, I do. Doppler radar, how about? Weather, guys. I think weather is going to be a massive factor this week as well. Like so many games, and we've talked about it throughout the week here on Fantasy Football Happy Hour about this, this Cleveland-New Orleans games where we expect the weather to be like 10 degrees and potentially winds up to 50 miles an hour. So many games are going to be outdoors in bad weather. We saw the effect of it last night with the Jets, just heavy rain in that Jets-Jaguars game, and so I asked a friend of ours, the official meteorologist of the Fantasy Football Happy Hour, to weigh in and give us a breakdown of the weather in this week's games.
It's going to be cold as hell everywhere this weekend, so I'm giving you the in-depth analysis for Week 16 in the NFL. Starting in Charlotte, we got the Lions at the Panthers. Now, we know the Lions offense can move well, but this time they outside and they got Jared Goff, that Cali boy, in that cold weather. He might freeze up just a little bit there. Then we got the ugliest game on the slate, right? Take it on up to Cleveland, where the Saints have to travel to the Cleveland Browns and play, right? 50-mile-an-hour gusts in that game. You only really want to start maybe Nick Chubb, Alvin Kamara. I don't know nobody else. Then take that thing on down to Nashville right here. Now, it's 20 degrees, and that is not a problem. However, the problem is tackling King Henry in that 20-degree weather. I don't know if they're going to do that, being the worst rushing defense in the league.
That was Lord Don't Like Cold, by the way.
I don't like no cold, man.
No, exactly.
No relation,
that guy.
No relation to Lord Don't Lose.
Well, right, because he's wearing glasses. That guy wasn't wearing glasses.
Yes.
I don't know who.
We do got one thing in common, though. This is that I don't like the cold either. So, hey, holla at me, my man. Wherever you at, let's link up.
Lord Don't Like Cold doing breaking that down. But, yeah, I mean, that's my big storyline, guys, is that I think as you're sort of making borderline decisions, you're starting your studs. But I do think, like, there are scenarios where I agree with Lord Don't Like Cold. That, like Kamara and Chubb, and maybe Taysom Hill, if you're desperate at tight end, you could see him getting more run in that game. But, like, you're avoiding Amari Cooper in that game. Like, you don't feel good about anyone on the Titans other than Derrick Henry. Like, as you go through that, like, I'm trying to look for games in which they're in a dome or in good weather when I'm targeting sort of borderline players there. But you see it there on your screen. 11 degrees in Kansas City for Seahawks, Chiefs, right? 25 degrees in Carolina for Lions, Panthers. 11 degrees Raiders at Steelers. Bengals at Patriots is 20 degrees. It's going to be cold. It's going to be windy in a lot of places. Just nasty weather. I expect a depressed offensive weekend in fantasy for many of these games.
Yeah, I'm a Celsius guy, so those numbers don't mean anything to me. But I did see with the miles per hour winds, that's the thing that really kills fantasy production, kills passing yards. So I think the two ones in particular, the Bills against the Bears, and then the Cleveland game against New Orleans. Those two, they're going to be heavy run games.
And by the way, just real quickly on that, I mean, this seems like a dumb thing, but there are still many leagues out there that play with kickers. Like, no, seriously, like, I don't want Tyler Bass this weekend, right? I mean, like, get the guys that are going to be in windy conditions. Like, hey, is Graham Gano out there in my league, right? He's kicking in Minnesota in a dome, right? Is Jason Sanders out there, right? Kicking for Miami in Miami,
Just picked him up.
Right,
too.
exactly.
Yep.
Like, I'm just, again, like those small little lineup decisions in what will probably be a close playoff matchup, they make a difference.
Yeah. Thanks to Lord Don't Like Cold, you now know there are 8 games expected to have freezing temperatures.
8 games.
Lawrence, what's your top storyline heading into Week 16? Weekend 16.
For me, especially this important fantasy weekend, it's going to be, can the Dolphins get back on track to that elite offense that they were the first half of the season? We saw it kind of come back to the light against the Bills in a bad weather game. Remember, it was snowing towards the end of the game, real cold. Score ended up being 32-29. So with those two offenses, it didn't mean much, but this was the key for them. They got to running the ball. They had time of possession against the Bills. They had the ball for 30 minutes. In the previous 2 games versus the Chargers and the 49ers, they had only had it for 19 minutes in each of those games. So if they could run the ball and, kind of keep their defense off the field, because the defense, not a great defense, but they can make timely plays, keep them off the field, open up the pass more, and I would like to see them get back on track versus the Packers.
Yeah, and it feels like everybody's been able to run against that Green Bay defense, so this is absolutely weekend.
High total, too, 50 over-under right there.
Also, I'm playing against Raheem Mostert in a playoff game,
so
great.
We're
He's
good.
going off.
He's going to do something.
He's going to have a massive game. There's no question about it. But important game for Miami as well. Not that they haven't been trying, but
they need to win.
They need to win badly.
Got to win it.
Yeah.
Jay, what do you got?
So I've got Giants-Vikings, which I think if you looked at this game on the schedule before the season, you would have thought 8-7 Vikings against 5-10 Giants. This game is going to kind of be bad. But it's really interesting. One, the Giants, they can lock up a playoff berth if they win this game, and they're only 4-point dogs, which I think does surprise some people. And then there's just a lot of fantasy implications as well. The fact that you've got, is KJ Osborne, is that going to be a thing? Justin Jefferson, wide receiver 1. Saquon Barkley quietly looked like Saquon Barkley again on Sunday Night Football in a game that Matthew loves to talk about. So I think there are a lot of fantasy storylines here, and also betting-wise, I think we need to just step back and the Giants can clinch a playoff berth with 2 weeks to spare. It's absurd that this team is where they are.
What does that mean for Brian Daboll, Coach of the Year? I mean, nobody should have expected that. It's
No,
insane.
it's he's gotten a little bit overshadowed just because they had a really bad month and they're just such a kind of blah team. But I think he should be. Look, I think that it's Sirianni against Shanahan, and Daboll is the dark horse. But I think the job that Shanahan has done. If Shanahan goes 6-0 with Brock Purdy, I think he will win the award, particularly if Sirianni loses to Dallas on Saturday. But Daboll's right there as well, and he's done an amazing job.
He has done an amazing job. And to your point, again, that's a game I think to target for borderline guys. It's a game that with a high total, that is indoors, that won't be impacted by weather, to a good offense in Minnesota and a competent offense in New York, and 2 defenses that have really struggled as well. And so, right, I mean, you're starting Barkley, you're starting Justin Jefferson, but I'm high on Kirk Cousins this week. I think Thielen is viable. Obviously, Hawkinson's already a top 5 fantasy tight end there. But how about, Darius Slayton in that game? I just talked about Graham Gano, right? Or Greg Joseph on the other side. I do think that's a game to target, right? If you're desperate for a wide receiver 3, I think KJ Osborne versus some guy that, is in a bad win game.
Yep, the total in that game, to your point, Matthew, was 48. And I think the sneaky thing in that matchup is that this year, Daniel Jones and Kirk Cousins have basically been the same level of quarterback, which I don't think anyone thought coming into the season. Kirk Cousins
Fantasy points-wise. Not necessarily, not even playing-wise.
I don't think they're that far apart. Kirk Cousins has been chucking it up to Justin Jefferson, and he makes catches over 3 guys. I don't think Cousins has been great. And people look at, he had an amazing amount of yards against the Colts. Cousins was dreadful in the first half. He can't just throw that out. So I think this is going to be a closer game than people expect.
So let's take all that, right? We did the weather report. We talked a lot about the Browns.
Yeah.
Look at a guy like Adam Thielen, right? And so you're thinking about Adam Thielen, Amari Cooper, who you've leaned on Cooper probably earlier in this year for a long time. How do you stack up all those conditions? The total, the weather, what Cooper's done or what he hasn't done with Deshaun Watson?
I have Adam Thielen at 30. I have Amari Cooper at 31. I would start Adam Thielen over Amari Cooper. And by the way, I am starting Adam Thielen over Amari Cooper. I'm in the semifinals of my longtime keeper / dynasty league with all my college buddies, and I'm in the semis, and I'm literally starting Adam Thielen over Amari Cooper in that league. It's a half-point PPR league. I just don't want no part of Amari Cooper. He's bad in the cold. He's been bad with Deshaun Watson. It's not a great matchup against New Orleans. And again, potentially 50-mile-an-hour gusts. There's literally nothing to point to that says you feel good about Amari Cooper other than the fact that he's Amari Cooper.
Yeah.
I mean, that, you're banking it just on that name and the past production that you've seen before Deshaun Watson got there. So if Jacoby Brissett's getting the nod, then okay, maybe. But it just doesn't. This feels like a 10-6 game.
Yeah.
Right, that
Which would be good for all the people who got that Cleveland Browns defense.
Yeah. I'd much rather fire up the Saints or Browns defense than any player in the passing attack on either side. Again, because, oh, by the way, yesterday, Chris Olave and Jarvis Landry both ruled out of this game. It's going to be Rashid Shaheed, Traquan Smith. It's
big names.
I mean, it's if I'm starting one guy in the passing attack in this game, it might be Jawan Johnson, who does seem to have a connection with Andy Dalton. I think you'll see more Taysom Hill. He'll qualify tight end, but they'll probably use him as a runner in this one. But this feels ugly. This feels like a really ugly game.
Yeah, total's 32.5. It's good.
The lowest since when?
2008.
32.5, and I feel like I want to take the under.
Yeah. Saints just played in a 13-0 game 2 weeks ago against the Niners. They've got this in them. They can do it.
They're going to hold up their end.
Yeah, exactly.
One for me here, guys, the big story of the week earlier for us was if Jalen Hurts would play. Now that he's out, the story goes Gardner Minshew. What does that do for the Eagles' offense, especially against the Cowboys? For me, guys, the short answer is Not much, honestly. Jalen Hurts is amazing, right? We know what Jalen Hurts can do on the ground and through the air. But if you're worried about the pass catchers of the Eagles in this one, I'm not. I think Devontae Smith will be fine. I think A.J. Brown will be fine. Dallas Goedert had his career high in fantasy with 28.5 points week 13 of last season. So Gardner Minshew, is he Jalen Hurts?
With Minshew.
No, with Minshew.
Right, exactly. That's my point.
Yep.
Just clean that up.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's not a drop-off. If you're starting players from the Eagles offense and you're worried because Minshew's in, don't be. He'll be fine.
By the way, this Cowboys secondary is banged up a little bit. We expect the Cowboys to be able to move. This is also one of the highest over-unders on the slate as well at 46.5. We expect points to be scored here. And so I would agree with you. Gardner Minshew is a competent quarterback, right? He is not Jalen Hurts, but he'll be passing behind a big offensive line. He'll have a good run game. Gardner Minshew will be fine. I agree with you, Connor, to the extent that we care for our Eagles pass catchers. I would start who I would normally start.
Gardner, not the only backup quarterback starting this weekend. Look at the list here on the screen of the guys that will be starting. Desmond Ridder is in. Tyler Huntley's good to go.
None of these guys that you see on your screen, with the exception of Baker Mayfield, started week 1. And Baker Mayfield started for the Panthers in week 1. It's unbelievable when you think about that. Nick Foles, Trace McSorley, Mayfield starting for the Rams, Brock Purdy, Taylor Heineke, Malik Willis, Sam Darnold, Tyler Huntley, Desmond Ridder, Gardner Minshew there. Deshaun Watson's also going to start. He didn't start the year as the starter there in Cleveland as well. So I mean, it's just like by the way, and we saw Zach Wilson, who had his job and then lost it and then got it back again and lost it again. So, I mean, bad quarterback play. Not even mentioned there because Davis Mills will technically get the start, but we'll see some Jeff Driscoll in there. Yeah. I mean, as well, right? Against Tennessee. Like, it's just, Kenny Pickett makes his return for Pittsburgh, but we've seen Mitch Trubisky, and they threatened us with Mason Rudolph. Right? And there's a chance we see Anthony Johnson for the Ravens because Huntley's not 100%. Oh boy. It's what's crazy is by the way, a lot of those guys are like third stringers. Like McSorley's a third stringer. Yeah. Baker Mayfield at one point was the third stringer. Brock Purdy was the third stringer. I mean, like, it's just been an absolutely brutal year for quarterbacks, and in week 16 trying to find fantasy players that are getting throws from competent quarterbacks is tougher than it normally is in an NFL season.
Yeah, it's you're right.
It is. You know what it is? It feels like it's just, week 16, there's just a lot of stranger things going on.
Very good, Matthew.
Terrible.
Let's quickly move on.
Get that off.
Yeah, well, let's get us out of here. Let's get us right into burning questions before he continues on. We're going to end
up
back
at the refs. For those listening at home, I'm wearing a Stranger Things Christmas sweater for those listening at home.
Yeah.
Nailed it.
That's what that was.
It was a walk-off.
Well, you know what's nice is sometimes I like to just tell a bad dad joke and let it lie there, but sometimes I like to really just over-explain it and just really hammer it home. Because when it didn't land the first time, I think if you just keep hammering it over and over again, it'll just it'll be worse.
He's like, you're going to get this joke now.
Yeah, damn it.
Matthew loves to do the Matrix Reloaded thing where the architect guy explains, takes 22 minutes to explain. Oh, here's what you guys were watching the past 2 hours. Like Keanu, do you remember? Yeah, that's what's happening.
If you guys ever saw the old Austin Powers movies, I should have been Basil Exposition. That's what I should have been. That's the role. Exposition is what it's known when you explain stuff. I'm explaining exposition.
Yeah. Burning questions.
That's what I'm doing here.
Let's start with the Eagles at Cowboys.
December 23rd, you get the jokes you get. End of the year. All right, I'll go.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Okay, no worries. Back to Eagles at Cowboys here. We talked a lot about Gardner Minshew and the pass catchers, but Jay, how do you look at someone like Miles Sanders in this game as well? Is there a concern, or is there maybe even a boost because we know how much Jalen takes away from the touchdown threat in the red zone on the ground?
I think it's just bad for Miles Sanders. To your point, I don't think the pass catchers are as affected, but I think that so much of what Miles Sanders has been able to do, his efficiency, his red zone looks, have been because of what Jalen Hurts opens up for the rest of your running game because he's such a threat. And then also just game script. Like they were 1.5 point dogs, now they're 4 point dogs. So they're less likely to be leading, less likely to be running the ball. Dallas' run defense has been a bit susceptible. Dallas' defense in general has been a bit susceptible, but I think this is bad for Miles Sanders, but the pass catchers won't suffer as much.
Lawrence, you agree with that?
Yeah, that is a great point that he brought up. Now, we could, on the surface, we could say, like you said, Connor, no Jalen Hurts, more rushing opportunities for Miles Sanders. Now, that'll be good if the Eagles get near that goal line, and we expect them to often. Then if they get near the goal line, it's like it's Miles Sanders, instead of thinking like, oh, Jalen Hurts is going to vulture the touchdown, to where it could be either guy. But to Jay's point, like, a lot of that opening up has to do with the threat of Jalen Hurts. So it's a 50-50. Got to get near that goal line.
Saints-Browns. Barry, you heard not Lawrence, but Lord don't like cold.
Yeah.
Talk about this game and the lack of obviously.
I'm going to submit him for an Emmy. Lord don't like cold.
For this show, that's what we
Emmy.
should. Yeah. That was an incredible debut.
No doubt.
And it should not be the last time we hear from him.
Absolutely not.
Is there really anybody you could start in this game besides the running backs on each side, Kamara and Chubb? I mean, you already said Cooper is wide receiver 31 for you.
Yeah, Kareem Hunt's running back 47, Deshaun Watson quarterback 18. I do think Kamara and Chubb are viable top 12 plays today. You talk about Kamara, who had 23 touches last week. Cleveland allows the second most rushing touchdowns to opposing running backs. So I know Kamara's been sort of allergic to the end zone this year. He's only got one game in which he scored. He did score 3 touchdowns in this game. But just given the cold, given the struggles of the offense, the fact, again, no Olave, no Landry in this game, my expectation is that it's a massive workload. No Mark Ingram as well. I mean, again, David Johnson, is getting a run in this game, right? I mean, potentially Eno Benjamin. So I think Taysom Hill becomes sort of interesting. Just like, again, only if he qualifies at tight end in your league. He doesn't qualify at tight end on every platform, but he does on most. And so if Taysom Hill qualifies at tight end and you're sort of in that tight end streamer hoping for a touchdown world, I think you could make an argument that maybe there's more Taysom Hill in a game where we expect them to be run heavy, in a matchup where they should be able to run the ball. But other than that, no, I'm avoiding this game at all possible. Juwan Johnson maybe as well, but I do think Chubb gets back on track as well. He's averaging almost 20 touches a game. Your boy, Evan Dolchit, how do I pronounce his last name? The center for the Browns. How do I pronounce his?
Pochit.
I was going to say Dolchit. That's the tight end in Denver. Sorry. Pochit. Right. Anyway, he's back, which is he'll be back for the Browns as well, which should help that run game, as you've sort of noticed as he's been out. Chubb has struggled somewhat, so I like Chubb in this game as well. I think heavy run game. Yes. Amazing. And we like the under on 32.5.
Yeah. Amazing that Ethan Posick has become my boy. It's very, I was playing long odds before the season, and that was going to be uttered on this show.
How did we get here?
Yeah, exactly.
Seahawks.
Right. As a young man in Australia, one day I'll grow up to be on NBC wearing a Bortles jersey talking about
a 6'6" center.
For the Browns. Yeah. For the Browns, exactly.
Seahawks-Chiefs, one of the highest point totals of the weekend, guys. Over-under is set at 49. We also know this is a game that will be dealing with frigid temperatures. But, Lawrence, with that being said, do you think at this point both Isaiah Pacheco and Jerick McKinnon are top 20 running back plays with what they've done over the last month?
Well, it's easy to answer that question, Connor, because over the past 3 weeks, Jerick McKinnon has been RB2, Isaiah Pacheco has been RB19, so that's fact. So, yes, they could both be top 20 backs going into this week. And speaking of the frigid temperatures, now it's not going to really affect, it's definitely not going to affect Kansas City, so they're going to play their game. The question will be is, can the Seahawks catch up? If the spread holds true at -10, then we should see a lot of both of these running backs and expecting them to do what they've been doing the past few weeks.
Barry, how are you ranking them this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, I have McKinnon over Pacheco, 15 for McKinnon, Pacheco at 18. Both guys are must starts here. And I think that you're starting the normal Chiefs guys who are. Yes, it's supposed to be cold, but I don't think it's going to be super windy. And it's a great matchup with Seattle as well, as their defense has really struggled. Kelsey is in a smash spot. I mean, we saw what George Kittle did to the Seahawks last week as well. I think Juju's in for a big game here as well. We'll see how the rest of the pass catchers sort of play out. I think we're getting Mecole Hardman back as well. You got MVS out there, some Sky Moore, Justin Watson, et cetera, maybe even Kadarius Toney makes an appearance. But the normal guys you're starting of the Chiefs, I think you're starting. Other side of that ball in Seattle, I think the big question here is what happens in Seattle with the running game. And then, of course, opposite DK Metcalf. I think DK Metcalf set up for a huge game here.
Oh, yeah.
Marquise Goodwin is kind of an interesting streamer in this game because of no Tyler Lockett. They're going to be down 10. Kansas City actually is top 5 in terms of most fantasy points allowed to opposing wide receivers. And then Pete Carroll said that he expects Ken Walker to play in this game, and if he does, well, we'll see. Right? I know you gave a look like I'm not sure I buy it.
if it was any other coach in the league outside of Pete Carroll, but I would just make sure you have a backup plan for Ken Walker because he didn't practice all week, dealing with a back as well as his ankle now. So it's not like minus 1,000 that Ken Walker's going to play in that
On the
game.
other hand, though, he didn't really practice last week leading up into the Niners game, and then he looked like Ken Walker against the Niners.
He'll probably play, but just have a backup option.
There's no question about it. I just think the upside of Ken Walker, I don't know that you have another option here. Kansas City's middle of the pack in terms of run defense. Walker's involved in the passing game, so even if they're down, they'll go to him. It's a 1 o'clock game on Saturday, so that's the positives, is that you will know if Ken Walker is active or not, so you'll be able to pivot there. But I will say this. If Walker is out, I don't love any other Seahawks running back, whether it's Travis Homer or DJ Dallas. I'm avoiding that situation if it's not Ken Walker.
Lions 2.5-point favorites traveling to play the Panthers. The over-under's at 43.5. Jay, Detroit's backfield has hit a bit of a slump recently. Is there anyone in this offense, besides Amon-Ra St. Brown, of course, that you actually trust with confidence here?
I think you feel okay about DeAndre Swift. Outside of that, I wouldn't like any of the pass catchers in Detroit. I think, look, they beat the Jets, and Jared Goff's stat line was okay. Jared Goff did not play well in that game. He missed Jameson Williams open for a touchdown. All the fears about Goff outdoors in the cold, they were all realized against the Jets. They just got bailed out by that one huge play at the end to Brock Wright. So I don't feel good about the pass catchers outside of Amon-Ra and then DeAndre Swift as well.
Yeah, and the Brock Wright touchdown, by the way, was like a 10-yard pass that then Brock Wright ran like 60.
Good for you, Jared.
Right. I mean, so it counts as a 60-yard touchdown or whatever it was for Jared Goff. But to your point, he did not play well as well. It looked okay in the box score, but Panthers are the seventh best pass defense over the last month. Give Steve Wilkes credit. He has turned that defense around. They're playing well. They're also a top 10 run defense in the last 4 weeks. But to your point, 75 total yards in 2 of the past 3 for DeAndre Swift. I agree with you, Jay. I was a borderline top 20 play in this one. He's one that I think is viable in this one. But yeah, I mean, I have Jamal Williams in a deep league, and I'm likely benching him.
5 catches for DeAndre Swift against the Jets, and that's going to bump it up.
Yeah, helps in the PPR format. All right, fellas, we are going to take our first break, but when we are back, Mike Florio joins the show to go through the biggest injury headlines around the league.
Everyone loves an ugly sweater. The Broncos were pranked. I like the one player pointing out he realized there was a camera back on the Fantasy Football Happy Hour with Jay Croucher, Matthew Berry, and a man who truly knows how to rock an ugly sweater, our very own Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk and Football Night in America. There he is. There is Mike Florio in all his glory, his Viking sweater, resplendent, basking in their epic comeback victory against the Colts. Personified beauty right there from Mike Florio.
Action shot.
When you come back from 33-0, you can rock whatever you want, Mike Florio. Well done, and you join us now on the Fantasy Football Happy Hour. Also, once again, in the purple and gold for your beloved Minnesota Vikings.
Well, it's very cold here today, so I needed something that would allow me to withstand this blast that has made its way into the attic above my garage. I'm surprised you can't see my breath. And also, I don't know what the etiquette is for wearing a Christmas sweater. What's the turnaround? Can you wear it once a week? Can you wear it every other day? I don't know. So I didn't want to push it and potentially breach some protocol for ugly Christmas sweaters, because I was thinking about wearing it again today, but since I just had it on 5 days ago, I don't think it's ripe again yet.
You listen, I think you could have absolutely. Listen, when you come back from 33-0, when you set an NFL record for the largest comeback in history, I think you can rock whatever you want with ugly Christmas sweaters. There are no rules. I'm wearing an Ode to Stranger Things one. And by the way, I have a new sweater for the second hour. Just, I'm going to have a costume change. I'm like Janet Jackson back here.
Yeah, this is my Christmas sweater because I think nothing says Christmas like Blake Bortles, but that's just me.
It's fair enough. Listen, Mike, look, it's the day before the games, and I know, things always change. Within 24 hours before the games start, and in some cases 48 hours because we have a few games on Christmas, including our own game here on NBC and Peacock, Cardinals and Buccaneers. So things can change, but at this hour, if I may be Steve Kornacki here for a second, at this hour, we want to know what you're hearing. And let's start with the Monday night game and Nick Foles named as the new quarterback. Why the change to Nick Foles? What are you hearing about the Colts offense, especially under Foles?
Well, during the portion of the Saturday game between the Colts and Vikings that I actually saw live because I was waiting to get on a plane to come up to Connecticut, you got the sense that they maybe were holding in their back pocket the possibility of yanking Matt Ryan and putting Nick Foles in then. And maybe in hindsight, Jeff Saturday, the coach of the Colts, wishes he had put Nick Foles in at some point in the second half because Matt Ryan simply wasn't doing anything. Saturday said this week, we've got to get the safeties farther than 7 yards away from the line of scrimmage. Matt Ryan not getting the ball down the field. And remember this, when they first benched him, and Frank Reich said that Sam Ehlinger would be the starter the rest of the season, it was widely believed that that was a contractual move. Matt Ryan has $17 million in injury guarantees that will vest in March if he can't pass a physical. So whenever you are truly done with him, you have to get him off the field and put him in bubble wrap, or you put $17 million at risk. Now, they were willing to do it when they were still alive, and when Jeff Saturday thought he gave them the best chance to win. But now they're at the point where they've seen everything that they need to see from Matt Ryan. He's done. Let's see what Nick Foles can do, and let's protect that $17 million. They already owe Ryan $12 million next year, fully guaranteed. They wanted to avoid it, pushing that up to $29 million.
Yep. I'm not sure there's that much difference between Matt Ryan and Nick Foles at this point, given what Matt Ryan has shown, but there will be a difference between Jonathan Taylor.
I will say this. I think Nick Foles has a bigger arm. I think I don't know that I think he's probably less accurate, but I think Foles can push it down the field further than Ryan at this point in his career can, and so maybe they take some shots down.
I mean, it can't look much worse, so it's going to be different, so why not try it? But
it is.
The drop
it
off
is big news that Nick Foles is starting. Big news.
Colts officially eliminated from the playoffs last night as well, mercifully, with that Jags win. But Jonathan Taylor's out for the year with a high ankle sprain. His replacements are going to be Zach Moss and Deion Jackson. Mike, what are you hearing about that situation in terms of the split between those two?
Look for Zach Moss to get the bulk of the carries, and that Jackson and Jordan Wilkins, who's on the practice squad, will be bumped up for the game on Monday night. They'll get some of them, but Moss is the guy to play if that's the guy you've got on your roster and if that's the guy you're thinking about from the Colts.
Well, that's helpful then. I mean, especially for the people that had Deion Jackson, and we're thinking maybe he might get some passing down work as well. Jordan Wilkins be in the mix there. But Zach Moss to get the bulk of the work for the Colts is certainly helpful, especially when you consider, by the way, over the last month, the Chargers are like a bottom 8 run defense. That's one thing that you can attack L.A. on is you can run the ball. And with Nick Foles under center, why would you want to throw it? It's certainly, at least as long as the game is close, expect a healthy dose of Zach Moss. I think he's a viable flex this week, probably a little bit more touchdown dependent than you need. But let's move over. Let's stay in the same division in the AFC South, and now let's move to Tennessee. Malik Willis taking over for Ryan Tannehill. He's out with injury. The last time we saw Malik Willis, Mike, they would not let him throw. It was a Zach Wilson-esque offense under Malik Willis, where they were desperately trying to hide Malik Willis. As you see it there on your screen, just 10 pass attempts against Houston in Week 8, 16 on the road at Kansas City in Week 9, under 81 passing yards in both games for Malik Willis. Is the expectation now that he still isn't ready for prime time, so to speak, and they're going to limit him and it's just going to be all Derrick Henry? Or do they have more confidence in Malik Willis? What are you hearing about out of Tennessee these days in terms of their new rookie starting quarterback?
Well, don't expect the game plan to call for 30 passes from Malik Willis, and I think they'd like to try to run as much as they can and only pass if they have to. If they can effectively move the ball with minimal passing, then you just keep doing it. We've seen that in stretches for the Titans where a defense just can't stop Derrick Henry and the rest of the running attack, so they just keep going that way. And if they have to throw it, if they have to put the ball in Malik Willis's hands and hope that he can basically save their season, that's the, hey, no pressure, rookie. We just need you to go out there and win games for us because Ryan Tannehill's likely done for the year, and we've got the Jaguars on our heels. So I think they want to help him build some confidence. I think that's what you see a lot with guys like this who are young and inexperienced. Find ways to complete high percentage passes, build some confidence, get it down the field on a limited basis, but very strategically after the guy feels better about himself. Just that momentum that builds as you get more comfortable. But they're not going to throw extensively, and I don't think we would have expected them to. The question is if they fall behind and they need to come back and gain yards quickly, will Willis get it done if that obligation falls on him to literally save the season for the Titans?
Yeah, looks like perhaps Treylon Burks will return for the Titans in this one, and Chigakonkwo has been a top 5 tight end for the last couple of weeks here, but both guys would be desperation plays for me given the weather and Malik Willis. I would ideally look elsewhere for any Titan not named Derrick Henry. That's the only guy that I think he can start. And Derrick Henry, of course, has I think it's 4 straight games with over 200 yards against the Texans and 2 touchdowns for King Henry.
Yeah, you don't want to start Malik Willis, clearly, but you could not build a better game in a lab for Malik Willis in this situation, just given that I think that the Titans are probably going to face more stacked boxes this game than any team has faced all year. So there will be guys open for Malik Willis, or at least in single coverage. Maybe not going to be that many guys open in Cleveland, New Orleans, Mike, where there's going to be 32-mile-per-hour winds. The total there is 32.5. Is there a different approach that you see these teams taking in the conditions?
Well, here's what's amazing to me. Most of the media covering the Saints can't even get to Cleveland for this game. So it's just that's how bad it's going to be, and that's how bad it is in this area right now. But I saw that Nick Underhill, who runs NewOrleansFootball.com and has covered the Saints for a long time, he suggested that it may be an extensive Taysom Hill day. And I've been saying for weeks, use this guy more. He provides a spark. He creates excitement. He makes things happen. That's been the case for the last 3 years, but they never use him as much as they should. It looks like by necessity we're going to see a lot more Taysom Hill because he comes in with that viable run-based attack that you may need to try to outscore the Browns under very tough weather conditions. So Taysom Hill's just a fascinating figure to me because he shows up as a tight end on the roster, but he does so many other things for you potentially if they just give him opportunities to play.
Yeah, in leagues in which platforms where he qualifies as a tight end, it seems like he's a no-brainer start. We also like Kamara in this game. Worth noting as well, in addition to the bad weather conditions, no Chris Olave, no Jarvis Landry. I mean, they're really beat up in the receiving core in a bad weather game against a tough Browns defense that at least there's one area that they give up yardage, and it's against the run. Like they give up 5.6 yards per carry to running backs. That's among the highest in the league. So I agree with you. I think it sounds like a big Taysom Hill game, and of course Alvin Kamara. You're starting him as well. Last one for me here, Mike. Lamar Jackson looks like he's set to miss yet another game for the Baltimore Ravens. Tyler Huntley, even though he's dealing with a shoulder, looks like he's going to go. What are you hearing about Baltimore? Is this the last we've seen of Lamar Jackson? Is he ever coming back for fantasy managers? It's a contract year for him. He did not want to sign an extension in the preseason. This is a weird one to me. What are you hearing about Baltimore and the quarterback situation and that offense?
Well, remember when he suffered that knee injury, Coach John Harbaugh said it's not season-ending, it's week to week. But when you are Lamar Jackson, if you're anything less than 100%, why are you going to play without the security beyond this year and put yourself at risk? That's the smart play for any player who has just a few games left before he becomes a free agent or eligible for the franchise tag. And that's what's fascinating here. What I've been picking up on this is that the Ravens may be undergoing an organizational shift away from the exclusive franchise tag to the non-exclusive franchise tag for Jackson. And if they go non-exclusive franchise tag, guys, that opens up the world of all sorts of possibilities. Someone else signing him to an offer sheet with, if the Ravens don't match it, 2 first-round picks as compensation, or trade conversations between the Ravens and some other team that may want Lamar Jackson. But the reality is, to the extent he wants to break the bank, look at the cautionary tales we've seen this year. The Russell Wilson contract, the Kyler Murray contract. Is he really going to get the deal that he's wanted? He wants that fully guaranteed Deshaun Watson contract. I don't think he's going to get it, and it's really going to prompt some soul-searching for him. Do I take the best deal I can get from the Ravens, or do I possibly see if there's another team out there that would trade for me and pay me what the Ravens won't? But the Ravens possibly going to open that door with the non-exclusive franchise tag and invite other teams to come make them an offer. That's where this thing could be heading.
Yeah, and you could see that. And it does feel like a little bit of a business decision. It's a weird one, though, because they're still in the playoff hunt. Interesting to see, but Appreciate that, Mike. We will see how that plays out, but it'll certainly be Tyler Huntley under center for the Ravens this weekend as well. We will check you out on ProFootballTalk.com, of course. We'll follow you on Twitter at ProFootballTalk, and we'll see you Sunday night on Football Night in America. You are always on the nice list here at Fantasy Football Happy Hour, Mike Florio. We appreciate
Where's
you.
my Christmas chocolates?
Yeah,
Where's my Christmas chocolates?
We are going to send you. We'll send you an ugly sweater. How about that, my friend?
All right.
No chocolates list here at the Happy Hour. All right. When we return, Week 16 rankings. Me, Lawrence, Connor, and Jay. When we come back.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBC Sports and RotoWorld.com. Just want to thank you so much for watching what you just watched, or at least being too lazy to click out of it after the autoplay just kept it going. So either way, thank you so much for just letting it scroll by your screen. And now I'd like to ask you respectfully, okay, please subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel for the latest NFL news, fantasy headlines from RotoWorld, and betting analysis from NBC Sports Edge.